not a forum in order to make a speech. That's the right of the candidates. They throw their names in the hat. They have that entitlement to give speeches. We would like to give clear questions. So I understand that sometimes it takes a bit of context. You might need a little bit of a preamble, but our timekeeper will give you 30-second warning, and try to work with 30 seconds to get your question out. Let me know if you would like to direct it at any one of the specific candidates, or if it's for all the candidates. And in terms of answering, I'll try to mix it up, give each candidate an opportunity. So is there anybody in the room that would like to answer or ask a question? Yes, ma'am over there. And once the question is asked, the candidates will have 90 seconds to answer your question.
First of all, I'd like to congratulate you and the candidates on the format that you introduced tonight. It's a lot more civil than what I saw on TV the other night. Congratulations to all of you, and I'd especially like to congratulate this young...
Oh, yeah.
Oh, boy. Oh, dear.
I'd also like to congratulate this young man, because I don't know about the rest of you, but at 24, the idea of running for a national party, a national election, has been the farthest thing from my mind. So this young man should be congratulated. And now the preamble is done. And my question was for all three. As much as I'm worried about how my kids are going to be able to afford a home, I'm also worried about how seniors are going to be able to stay in their homes. With housing prices being what they are based on municipal taxes, etc. It might be a question for the municipal candidates when that election comes, but I think the federal government has a role to play in helping seniors afford the homes that they worked so hard to purchase, and that is my question.
Okay. I'm going to ask Anne if you would like to answer that question.
Seniors. I was talking to some seniors. I was talking to some seniors last night. I really enjoyed meeting them. I consider them a group of new friends, really. And there's probably many of our systemic problems that we want to fix through the system will help seniors as well, such as poverty and affordable housing. But specific to seniors, we will be increasing the Canada Pension Plan, which is currently at the rate of 25% of your former salary, and we'll be graduating that up to 50%. Because it's not enough. We also, I'm trying to remember the other, though I won't bother looking, there was one other package, as it were, that was new revenue for seniors. But we have also included in our encouragement of better and affordable housing the understanding that seniors want to be able to live in their house often, as long as they can. If your spouse needs you to help them out, you are considered a primary caregiver and you get paid. It's not a lot, but it's enough for you to be able to afford respite, a caregiver to help you off here and there. And that is something that they do in Europe and we should be doing here. Because the longer that people get to stay in their homes, they have a higher quality of life as well. There's also housing we want to build that makes seniors being able to move together in a smaller home, and the housing is to be in communities, not out in the middle of nowhere.
Actually, I'm really pleased you asked that question, because when I got to Ottawa, I realized that we didn't have a seniors caucus, so I took it on and chaired the seniors caucus. And I'm proud that with the work that we did and the report, we worked for a year with all the consultations that we did. We did a report to the Prime Minister, and through that report, we got a Minister for Seniors and several improvements that you are seeing in our platform. So right away, we know, well, there's so many things, and it comes to aspects of healthcare, comes down to the increases that we did right away, to reverse the cuts that the Harper did when he went from 65 to get your benefits for GIS, or Guaranteed Income Supplement, and Old Age Security. He moved it up to 67. So right away, all of a sudden, for 2 years, people are waiting for the benefits, and usually they're the most vulnerable ones. So we reversed that, and that actually countered the trend of what some of the other G7 Western countries are doing, because we realized that was going to be a serious problem for seniors. As I mentioned before, we reduced the tax 1.5% between 45 and 90, so that would put a little more money in their pocket. The issue that I hear for seniors is they want to stay in their homes, they need more home care. When they come back from hospital, they need a renovation, a modification program to be able to adjust their homes as they age, and they need amendments. We have now a program that we're bringing in with our platform. And we also are looking at, building more homes for seniors and building them in different ways. The homes we're building today are not designed for seniors. There are some very creative opportunities on how we can recreate, not just building closer to where the services are, but building unique design homes where more seniors can have community support. Thank you.
Thank you, Lee. So I really appreciate the question. As somebody who is from the younger side of things, it's good to have perspective to think about all age groups. So I do appreciate the question a lot. Part of the reason why I like our platform so much is that so much of it is applicable to all people. Things like healthcare obviously can get more and more precarious as the numbers get up in terms of age, and also as health issues start to take effect from the years of living and all of the health issues that come along with age. So having a robust healthcare system that where we're increasing things that are covered, or we're increasing access to services, and trying to get those services not only have been mentioned not only in certain areas, but getting those services out into the communities. Those are things that are good for all, not just young people, not just seniors, and not just people who are in the middle ages between. So as someone who is younger, I do see those types of policies as incredibly helpful, not just because it helps all age groups, but because all age groups can get behind it, because it unifies the voting base. So it helps people think, I'm not just voting for myself at this point, I'm voting for all people. All people need health care, all people need affordable housing, all people need these services that we're trying to fund. So my thing is universality, and the universality of platform. Thank you.
So there's an opportunity here for candidates to comment or rebut any of the questions or the answers. Okay, go ahead.
I would like to put holes in the conservative plan, but I can't find one. The other thing I wanted to mention was that we will regulate the Canada pension plan to make sure that they divest from oil, coal, and natural gas. We don't need their investments being lost in this. I'm saying that to all of you. I also wanted to point out, too, that we will be developing a national senior strategy, and we have, I think it's the order, yes, it's $50 million a year with the national dementia strategy, because dementia has not been dealt with in community the way it should. In some countries in Europe, the police, the neighborhood, everyone has got training and understanding, so people who walk away and go down the street are dealt with, sensitively and properly, and not treated as a person who needs to be locked up. So there's lots of education required.
I'm sorry? Yeah. You have another? Okay.
So I'm really glad that you mentioned a couple of things that we've already done. And so we put $50 million in and we created a national dementia strategy. So
We're increasing that.
okay, you're building on the good work that we've already done. That's great. We also we already have increased the pensions because we saw the challenge that seniors didn't have enough money in their pensions. It wasn't designed as the main pension resource. It was supposed to be your job, and this was an adjunct. And so obviously we saw that wasn't working. So we already negotiated with the provinces an increase to a senior's pension that will now net 50% more. So it's really good to see that your platform is building on what we've already done. Well.
Amelia, would you look at it?
Maybe not the rebuttal for their comment. Something that I haven't mentioned, but something that I care deeply about. Unions. I mentioned them lightly earlier, but we need more unionized work because as a young person, I would love to be in a union because I know that as a senior, then I will have more security, and I will have a better pension, and I will have people fighting for me to have that pension and to have a pension that doesn't get affected by the economy in ways where it's being invested in things that are incentive like oil. From unions in general and a government that appreciates unions and works well with unions is a way in which people who already are in them and who are already retirees who are in those unions or who are seniors who are still working at their age in those unions, it will allow them to have that security and to build on that sense of security throughout their life.
I'd like to change topics completely and talk about foreign policy, please. So in the last week, I have heard several times the Conservatives talking about one of their sources of revenue is this 25% reduction in foreign aid. And so we don't need the candidate here to tell us that. So that's their platform. What I'd like to hear from each of you is your party's position on foreign aid. Thank you.
We're going to restore the CDA, the Canadian Investment Development Agency. That's gone. I didn't even realize it disappeared. We will also try to be as fast as we can, but our plan is to restore the point, get to the point of 7% of GDP in foreign aid. That was the goal that our Prime Minister, Mr. Lester Pearson, put to the United Nations, and we are much behind many other nations right now. So some nations have met that, we have not, and there's no reason why we can't, and we're going to need to do it because part of the thing Canada has to do, first we have to get our own house in order, then we are going to go back to leading the world, being part of the world's leadership in addressing global warming, and the poorer countries need help. And some people might just have to be relocated. Some places are going to disappear. So we have to step up. So we ask me more questions.
Emilio, would you like to take that next?
Yes, thank you. So in terms of discussing foreign aid, Anne said it right in that we do have to get our house in order first in order to help. Canada, in the short time that I was here, has always been considered a global leader in areas like foreign aid, and in our involvement in the world, we've always been, the peacekeepers, and we've always been there to try to help as often as we can, despite the fact that we sometimes step aside and allow countries to interact with each other in ways that we do not normally appreciate. In terms of foreign aid, a cut in foreign aid now is going to affect us later. It was mentioned that places are going to start disappearing. We're going to start having climate refugees who are trying to get to Canada. Because Canada, although our temperatures are going up by, I've heard double and sometimes triple the projected amount, our temperatures are rising astronomically quicker than what we expected. People are still going to be coming here because we still will have more resources and have more wealth than a lot of other nations in the world. So a cut in foreign aid now and a lack of initiative and action on the global scale will eventually come back to us because people will need somewhere to go, and a lot of people see Canada as a place to go, as it should be. Having those cuts now, they might be a solution to some in the moment, but long term, not a solution. Thank you.
I want to thank Deb very much for that question because I actually get this at the door. People say, why are we sending money to other countries when we should be looking after ourselves? The reason you send money to other countries is because if we don't help other countries to stabilize, and it's specifically in the way that we have targeted the money since we've been in, it's at women and girls. If you don't educate girls and you don't help women, then you're going to end up with the women not being educated and they're just making more babies and they're having difficulties getting themselves out of the situation that they're in. If you put money into women and girls, that is the way to help stabilize areas and to get economic development. It's been known over and over and over again. We do not put the amount that other countries have put in, so we're not doing it excessively, but where we're doing it very targeted. Because if we don't help stabilize other areas, those people are coming here. And then what are we going to do? So it's better to spend precautionary and helpful ahead rather than having to deal with it when the migration is coming from those areas because they don't have stability, because they have too many people. And so this is why we're investing money internationally where we can see a benefit. It's going to move in that direction, and it's what we need to do. And it's a very strong contrast between ourselves and the Conservatives. And I hear this at the door, and I'm glad to have that conversation. So thank you, Debbie, for bringing that up.
Anyone have a comment?
I just wanted to say this is a time for visionary leadership. In Canada, we need to have courage and vision with our leaders. Federally, we've been missing it for a long time. We've forgotten that we're a federation and not a republic. Well, we also need leadership in global cooperation. And this plan of retracting the foreign aid is the opposite direction we need to go. And I wish that the Conservative Party were here, representative were here, because I think that I would like to know how they justify it. It's just to put money in your pockets, I guess.
Yeah, I'm totally with you there. I think that they're, pandering to people that are not understanding what is going on with that money. And I just want to give an example of something that I'm so proud of. And it's Minister Freeman said, how can we as a small country make the best impact with the small resources that we're putting in on the table? And she came up with a way to say, when the UN is out there, we were finding, and you heard this in the news, that sometimes the UN fellows were using some of the women in the most desperate situations in a way that was not appropriate. And they were prostituting them and they were taking advantage of them. When you bring women to the front line in that environment, the guys behave better because they don't like to do that in front of their women colleagues. So we found a way, with very small amount of extra money, to say, let's pay countries more money to bring more women. We have to protect them and make sure that they can serve safely. But if we bring more women into that, the countries that, because we pay to have them to apply to have soldiers in the UN. So let's do it this way, and we're going to have better outcomes, especially for those areas where we're supposed to be going in and protecting. So these are the small things, and I'm so proud of the leadership of the people that are in our party that are making a serious difference on the ground because of those small changes and those focus changes. And so that's just, I thought I'd share that story because I'm quite proud of that. Thank you.
Amelia, would you like to have a comment?
So one other thing that I wanted to mention regarding the 25% to foreign aid, that sort of rhetoric is incredibly harmful because we live in a world that is tempted by hate right now. We really do. You can see it across the world. It's been like that for a long time, but we're seeing it more at the forefront now. Maybe it's good that we're seeing it and that we are acknowledging it and we're working toward it. But Canada as a country saying we're going to scale back on helping our neighbors across the world, that is incredibly chilling and frightening that Canada, of all countries, would be shying away from helping neighbors across the world. And I just want to highlight the fact that that sort of thing on a political platform is incredibly indicative of the direction in which those behind that platform might potentially take things like foreign aid and things like foreign policy. Thank you.
My name is King-Vaughan, and I live in the woods north of King City. And I have a question for all three candidates. I saw a recent report from the Globe and Mail. I'm old, I still read newspaper. That the Conservative Party is going to implement serious, mandatory, non-negotiable prison terms for individuals who are found convicted of smuggling firearms into Canada. And secondly, the same thing, mandatory, non-negotiable prison terms for individuals who are found in possession of an illegal, unregistered handgun. Now, what do your three parties think of those situations? Thank you.
Who would like to take that?
I'm always willing.
Okay.
What comes to mind is that the Green Party doesn't believe in mandatory minimums. We believe the justices to have their discretion. So that's not a specific answer to your gun question, but I would also like to point out that we have a Canadian border service that has been taken away. I don't know if you know this, but they've been asked to start looking for people who snuck into Canada instead of trying to prevent arms and drugs from coming into Canada. We're going to refocus the Canadian service, the border service, to preventing smuggling of arms, because that's where most of them come from. And it's silly to give municipalities, leave it up to municipalities to enforce gun bans when there's a city next door they can just drive over. So this has to be a federal ban, and we will be implementing such. We hope that our Canadian Council of Governance with municipalities included would work it out together, because we have rural issues with long gun. But that's the great thing about the Council of the Depths of Government, is because then we can look at regional differences, housing included. But that, we just don't believe in bans. We also don't believe in third safe country. We want to live that. I can't remember what it's called. What is it? Safe third country, yes. With the border issue we have.
Would you also like to take that question?
Sure. Yeah, we went kind of all over the place. There's a lot to talk about there.
Yeah.
But I just want to go back to the prison terms. Where did you go? Yeah, back there. Okay. We just recently rolled back some of the mandatory prison terms for certain crimes, because what we found when we were looking at it is that there's an incredibly skewed way that our prisons are full of Indigenous people, and often very low income and vulnerable people. Those with mental health issues. We have prisons full of people that really shouldn't be there. And that's because the previous government brought in some mandatory minimums, and I know not everybody's going to agree to this, and violent crimes is different. But there's a lot of crimes, and I think circumstances need to be taken into account. If a woman has been brutalized for years, and she's afraid for her children to be hurt, and she kills her partner, and she's very low income, she's going to spend the majority of her life in prison. Probably should, she killed him, but you know, their kids are disadvantaged, everybody's disadvantaged. There is an opportunity for the judge to have a look at each individual case and determine what would be appropriate. And I have to tell you, from the stories that I heard in committee, it's shocking what's going on with the vulnerable people and our Indigenous people, and how they are not being served well by our courts. So we have to do better than we've done, and I don't think mandatory minimums, mandatory prison terms is the answer. We can get into firearms and guns and all the things that we have done, but border time, we've got to stop. So maybe somebody else can ask that question if you're interested, because there's a lot that we have done, and there's a lot of money that we've invested that I would like to share with you. Thanks.
Amelia, would you like to address that?
Thank you. So a lot of things have been addressed. There is one particular thing that I want talking about vulnerable communities and about who is in these court sentences. A lot of these individuals, some of them are turning toward crime, not necessarily as a way to make money, but out of necessity in some cases, or out of a lack of a feeling of helplessness. It's an option. It's sometimes an easy option. And platforms that target those reasons are platforms that reduce those problems from the inside out. So if people are not having to resort to crime and resort to, firearm smuggling and such in order to, in some cases, make ends meet, because some of those people are people who are incredibly poor, who are doing it because they need to in order to survive. Finding ways to support those individuals, having services for women in precarious situations, having infrastructure and policy and services that target those reasons why people turn to these problems or turn to these crimes is a better way to address those problems than just throwing them in jail. There's no reparative nature to that. It's just a punishment. There's no benefit other than you remove somebody who's made a mistake, who's done something that everyone else is not okay with. But finding ways to make it so that they don't have to get to that point is a way to stop those problems before they even start. Thank you. Sorry for going over your time.
So I'd like to take some more questions from the crowd if you guys are okay with that. Maybe we'll pause on the additional comments for the time being. That's okay. Okay, I saw some hands down there. Yes, ma'am, right there. Okay.
I'd like to ask all three parties what their platform is for providing necessary services for people like myself here in the rural area of King Township. You don't have to live way up north not to have essential services. There are plenty of us who live here in the rural area who do not have cell phone service, and we don't have high-speed internet. We're on dial-up. We've had all kinds of companies and everyone to our properties trying to get these essential services. And I recently got a letter from Bell Canada saying that as of December 1st, there will no longer be paper billing, that we will have to pay your bill with Bell on the internet. Now, how do you pay your bill with Bell on the internet when it's not there? I have to drive 5 miles down to the village to either go to the bank or the library to use the computer. And I am very computer knowledgeable. I know how to do all kinds of programs, but I don't have the internet available. We've had all kinds of companies come to our property and they say, well, no, because you're in a valley and you have all these wonderful huge trees, there is no hope and you're nowhere for you to get high-speed internet. Now, what are your platforms and your parties for providing these essential parts of life to the people right here, not way up north, but right here in King Township?
Who would like to dive in first?
Why don't you let me start, because this is something I've been actively working on for the last 4 years, and I did get a little bit of money, I think $825,000, that we were able to have Vianet be able to come off of their backbone. They had paid for the backbone installation, and we helped support, along with them and the province, to be able to bring that service along the roads that were going up and the houses that were along Jane. So we have also been, I was able to get $2 million to York Region, YorkNet. They're bringing in fiber and they're doing it to hook up their necessary services, but that also provides another vehicle, 30 seconds already, I just got started, another vehicle for other companies to get on. And if you notice what we did recently, and the companies, the big guys are fighting us, we said, you cannot charge outrageous fees to have another company come on to that backbone. So if they want to get on, then you have to let them on, and we mandated the cost, and we backed it up and said, you gotta go back and pay them back for those years that you were charging too much. And so that was causing a lack of competition. So now you're starting to see some activity in this community because they know I've got some money coming to the table, and we've got some opportunities, and they've got competition coming. And that's what we're doing. As a government, we're creating an environment where there's going to be more competition. You're going to get creative solutions. We have made a commitment that all Canadians across the country, this is highways of the future, actually highways right now, like highways were back, I gotta wrap it up, by 2030, and that's too far out there, 100%. By 2026, it's like 95%. But for us here, I am going to work to get us all connected. There's a plan to be able to connect everybody with a variety of different tools with the funding that we have available at the federal level. We just need to get the province to open the intake. And that's what I want to do. Thanks.
Okay, and if you'd like to take that, I'll give you 20 minutes.
If I might do it accidentally, but I'll be
Okay.
fine. So we also, my husband and I, have the same problem. We luckily are on 17th. So somebody else they needed to put the viaduct across our street, so we got to hook up faster. But I think if we had a minor bird or a budgie, it would be constantly going, because we had to die that. Anyway, so all I can say is the Green Party sees this as a serious issue, because the new economy, if we want to have our economy strong, and it's also, as you say, it's really a necessity. And we are funding the $400 million to the universal broadband. Pardon? No, that's on top of yours. Yeah. This is an increase. Actually, I should put a caveat. I haven't been able to find the page to tell you for sure it's an increase, but I believe this is an increase in revenue spending. So there's that, and then your point about Bell. And that's an urgent issue. And so you can go to the Ombudsman of Ontario, and you should do that in any case because you're going to have a problem later probably, and you want to line them up. But I was going to say as your future MP, I would help with that, but your member of Parliament is sitting to my right, and she should be able to hockey stick that thing through for you. That's not right, and they do make exceptions to these rules that they hand out. And didn't you get a kick out of getting the mail when you're still on the ballot, telling you there's a new Rogers fiber package in there? You phone them and they don't even know that you're not in your business.
Thank you. So I totally understand this, and the fact that I understand that somebody who's living at Keele and Rutherford, the fact that my internet is bad, I can't even imagine how bad your internet is. I also am on Bell, and like just today, it took me about an hour to download a file that I needed to print for tonight, which is why I was a little bit later than I'd like to be when I got here. So I understand that the internet problem is I thought it was a problem for me, but I can't even imagine how bad it can be up in some of the less populated areas of the project. So we pay an incredible amount for a service that is not comprehensive or enough. We pay 40% higher than almost anyone. I have friends who live around the world, and I have family members who have traveled, and the prices around the world are minimal in comparison to ours. And yet we're not even getting service that's enough for the everyday person in all parts of Canada. There are parts of Canada that obviously get no telecom services at all, or at least with internet and broadband. So with the NDP, our approach to the telecom consumer bill of rights is one way in which we're trying to make the situation a little bit better for everyone who is a consumer of telecom services. Taking on those big corporations that are holding us in a situation where we don't have the option of there being a competitive alternative, going after those companies and keeping them accountable and finding a way to push them to increasing those services instead of making it more expensive for something that's not even as good. Those are ways in which the government can engage in this problem. Further, connecting all management is on the platform for the New Democratic Party, and will also contribute to allowing everyone to access those services that are now being digitized. I'm seeing that I have time to talk, so I'm going to wrap it up. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. More questions out there? Do you have a question? Sure. See, we have lots more questions. I'm going to try to expand it a little bit. We were going to try to wrap these questions up a little bit sooner, but I see there's a few more out there. So
this is for you, Deb. In 2015, I was so pleased to hear about the promises for clean water for the Aboriginal communities, as well as a number of other different issues, because that meant then that the government was actually living into the Truth and Reconciliation report's recommendations, and that was exciting for me, and I was really pleased. But I feel like not that many promises were actually kept. And then this past week, I got excited again when I realized that the Supreme Court, I think it was the Supreme Court, ruled that there would be $40,000 given to every person who was removed from their families. Yes, thank goodness that was happening, because again, that's living into the Truth and Reconciliation report's recommendations. But Mr. Trudeau made it very clear that your party, the Liberals, were going to appeal that ruling. And I'm having a really difficult time understanding this because the Aboriginals were, I'm almost there. The Aboriginals were here long before any of us were. You gave money to Omar Piar. We've given money in the past to Japanese families when they were put in concentration camps during World War II. So we have repaid many people, but now there seems to be a refusal to support the Aboriginal when the Supreme Court has ruled that, but your party is now appealing it. Why?
Okay, so let's go to the leader has said many times, and he means it sincerely, that there's no relationship more important than our Indigenous people's relationship with Canada. And so we have been working diligently on this issue. He even made 2 ministers. We don't just have 1 minister anymore, we have 2 ministers working this because it's so important. And we solved 87 clean water, boil water advisories. And they're not solved by throwing money at the problem. They're solved by deeply getting into the communities, getting facilities built. You know that that doesn't happen overnight, that it takes some time. If there's a facility there, fixing the facility and training the people and getting the people within the community to take the responsibility for that rather than flying people out to try to do it. That's not long-term. Finding long-term solutions so that we don't continue to keep having boil water advisories building up. We do have more to do. We are on track to meet that commitment by 2021 to have them done. There will be others that come on because not all First Nations communities are in a position where everything's good. There's infrastructure deficits that have gone on for decades with lack of funding and lack of commitment. So I get it, and I'm just going to go on to the last bit because there's lots more to talk about housing, all the other things with the way we're dealing with the children and making sure we don't take. So let's go to the children. The reason there's an appeal, and I think it breaks his heart that we have to do this, is because the advice from the lawyers in the government is that there's technical problems with the ruling. And if you don't challenge it, then those technical problems become the standard, and that is not. So this is going to get resolved, but you have to fix the technical ruling, and that's what we've been advised, that you need to challenge that, fix that, otherwise they will spur on other issues. So that's why it's being challenged, not because we don't want to give children the money they deserve for the treatment that they had. It's to fix the ruling, okay?
Any other candidates want to comment? Go ahead.
I heard Mr. Trudeau, in an election, I don't have to say Prime Minister. Mr. Trudeau. Oh, he's still Prime Minister. Oh, I thought, okay. I thought it was the way. Prime Minister Trudeau commented to the press that they were going to appeal it. This is what I heard, I don't know if anyone else heard it, because they needed more time. That they weren't really appealing the decision, but they were going to try to ask for more time, and then I found out later in the media that they were in fact appealing the judgment, and now we explain why. So he told us something else differently. He said we had to pay by December, there wasn't enough time, we were in an election. Well, I remember reading our budget and our platform weeks and weeks ago, and we had already budgeted $2 billion, single payout. I can even read the thing here. So we're just going to pay it. This is not a judgment from one of our Supreme Courts that has to be appealed. This is not even from a lower court. This is a judgment from the Canadian Human Rights Tribunal, which is a legal binding thing. However, it is the right thing to do, and they need the money now. And I'm looking around for it. Here it is. It said here, honor the ruling of the Human Rights Tribunal in the matter of unequal treatment of Indigenous children, $2 billion, only one time, right away. And we budgeted for that. And I do not understand when he said in the press that they needed more time, because it's an election. So I now hear a different reason, and that frankly doesn't surprise me.
Would you like to comment to that, Ms.
Yes, please. So regarding the technical issues within the ruling, I'm not a lawyer personally, so I can't speak to this. But my party leader is a lawyer, so he can be a person who tackles those issues. If you would like more information regarding those technical issues, I can try to get that from my party and give it to you. If you were to provide me with a way to contact you, or with an email, or if you were to contact me, I can look into that for you. However, like I said, I'm not a lawyer, so I'm going to leave it to those who know the law better than I do. It's been discussed about time as being one of the issues surrounding this ruling. Frankly, I don't really see time and needing more time to be a valid reason not to be giving these amounts of money and the support to the Indigenous community. They've waited a long time. It's been hundreds of years of what is going on now, have been going on in work capacity throughout our history, and I think that even if we can get it as close as possible, but get the money to them, get the support to them as soon as possible, I think that we should be kind of trying to prioritize getting it to them as soon as possible. Not saying that it's not being done, but I just think that's the way that it needs to be addressed through immediate action, because people are dying on a regular basis from some of the issues that they're experiencing up there. In terms of the New Democratic Party, we're committed to incorporating the UN Declaration of Rights of Indigenous People into Canadian law and adopting the CRC's recommendations. So that's something that's certainly being addressed by our platform. We're looking to implement our principles to get those services to those kids who need them. We're committed to addressing the education gap, national suicide prevention, all of these things in order to help these individuals and address some of the issues that they're experiencing. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have time for one more question. There's a lady back there. She's been waving her hand quite frantically. So one more question, and then we're going to get to closing remarks, and then there'll be time to address the candidates afterwards.
Thank you for a great debate, and I wanted to thank you for coming. I know it means a lot for you to put yourself up there, and we learned a lot about you, and I think about your interests and your views. When I drive around this township, I see all sorts of political signs, and my neighbors might have different political opinions than mine, but when a tree falls down, or when the driveway needs to be plowed because your tractor doesn't work or your shovel's broken, we all get together as neighbors and we help one another. And I'm just wondering, because of you see what's south of the border and how civility is lost in politics, I'm just wondering if any of you were invited, or one of you were invited to go back to Ottawa, how would you reach across the aisle and deal with one another in a civil way?
Yeah, if I could, I just wanted to say we really did want to do politics differently. And I was given the honor to be the chair of the Environment Committee. And the first two studies that we did, we were able to do unanimous reports. Those are gems in parliamentary committees because the government can't ignore a unanimous report because everybody, all parties want to see that move forward. They hadn't had that in 10 years in the Environment Committee. When Andrew Scheer got elected leader, he tore the two people off of my committee that were working cooperatively with us from the Conservative Party and put two more aggressive, less cooperative people on so that we could no longer do cooperative reports. And we did not have another unanimous report. That is the kind of situation that we're in. You can want to do politics differently, but if the other party won't come to the table and work with you to do that, then it's very, very difficult. And we will continue to try, and we will continue to work to do politics differently. And we have brought stuff in our platform that is going to propose some changes that I think we didn't have the courage to do last term, but we are going to get it done this time because we cannot keep letting the kind of behavior that's been going on in the House of Commons. It's embarrassing. Sitting in the House of Commons and looking at the students ashamed of behavior you wouldn't allow it in a classroom. And the things that are done across the aisle are embarrassing. So we must make changes. We will make changes. We are not happy with it ourselves, but we did try. Thank you.
So one thing I want to bring up is this is obviously something that's going to become very relevant very soon. I really do appreciate the two women sitting next to me and the kindness that they show each other and towards me and the nice conversations we have at events. There is no animosity between us. We all recognize that we're all here to do similar things and that we just have different ways to do it. And that's something that I think that in King-Vaughan, we are very, very privileged to experience, that we're not yelling at each other and throwing things and misnaming people and regardless. That is something that in this riding at least, the people who are present today, you can at least ensure that we are people who are willing to work with others with different views and see our similarities. So I will comment that this is an issue that will be felt across the nation, but I am confident in the two individuals sitting to my right that they would be the kind of people to go into our government and work with others. And I say that as somebody who would do the same. I don't think that politics, call it naive, but I don't really think that politics should be a battle. If anything, it should be a battle together for the people, but it shouldn't be so evil between individuals. And I can speak to being a student in the House of Commons. I did do it in grade 8. I know that's a long time ago, I was very young. But I remember specifically turning to my teacher and saying, wow, these guys run our country. Because I was well, yeah, thank you. Good point. But yeah, it is really bewildering that these people are behaving that way when they're supposed to be the best of the best and trying to create the best for us. And if they're doing that, yeah, it's definitely an issue, but I'm confident that the people sitting here today are not part of that issue.
Well, I have a leader, first of all, who sets an example. And she doesn't talk when other people are talking. So there's no, what do they call that? Well, they're bickering back and forth with someone trying to talk. Anyway, I can't remember. And Elizabeth May makes the greatest effort to work with all. And we've heard Deb Schultz remark about speaking with her. The Green Party is the unparty party. It's been known by Patrick Kelly, the first Green Party leader from Germany, that the Greens are the unparty party. We're actually structured differently. We are here because we think partisan politics is a problem, most of the problem. Corporate influence is another one. And so there's a lot to hold up. We also are required to not heckle, that's the word. And that's all what you see since the cameras went in, I think. saw what you saw, because when I was in grade 8, there was a lot more respected ideas, and people would agree with the other party having a good idea, but how we might implement it differently, things like that. In the committee, it's different. So passion is one thing, and we are human. I would do my very best to follow the example of Elizabeth May and the Green Party's conduct requirements in the House. And I have to say it that way because after the last debate, I had a bad day and I was quite upset. And after you were all gone, all of you, I have to apologize to Deb Schultz because I raised my voice with Deb Schultz. I felt bad about that after. Eventually, I tell you, it took me a while to get this off. I'm happy to apologize today.
Thanks everyone for all the great questions. We're now going to move to the closing comments segment. Each candidate will have up to 2 minutes for this with the 30-second warning, and we're going to go in reverse order, starting with Pam Rainey, and then Emilio Video, and then
Closing comments, 3 minutes. 2 minutes. So many questions not asked because there's not enough time. I would have liked to discuss how we're going to eliminate poverty in Canada with the guaranteed livable income, which is actually not as crazy as it sounds. It's a way of making sure we eliminate poverty by just simply taking the patchwork band-aid social net that's all around and streamlining it, working with the provinces and municipalities so that people are given a guaranteed income through the CRA, which is already existing as a bureaucracy. It's known in other countries to be very effective. Its costs probably the same or less, and it's more effective because people have the dignity of not having to fill out forms in different places asking for handouts. There's also farmer care, which we were the only, I'm told, we were the only party in 2015 that had it budgeted and in our platform. We also haven't really talked enough, I thought, on Indigenous, but I wrote that before Evelyn McLaughlin asked the question. I would like to say again that there's a party not represented here, but I've also heard it from the Liberals, the Conservative Liberals tending to talk about tax cuts to help people with affordability issues, and tax cuts only benefit people who have an income tax to pay. And we should not be forgetting that there are people that are not in the middle class, and tax cuts don't help them. So that's really complicating our tax system. So the Greens want to try to make our tax system a little more simple, so we don't have such a large mass of people at CRA dealing with it and auditing people. Earlier I said we need visionary leadership, and we have it in Elizabeth May. And she has the experience, I'd say the most experience as a leader for sure. She knows the levers and pulleys and wheels of the federal government. She knows what needs to be done, and she knows how to restore our federation to get things fixed.
Going out of this meeting, I'd like to call more of a meeting because it wasn't really much of a debate, it was more of a meeting. I'd like to remind everybody here of not only what's at stake in this election, but who is at stake. That this is not an election about the future of just you and I, it's about the future of our sectors, but also the future of more than just human life in this instance. I think that's something that we should have considered in previous elections, going back as far as we could. But this is not an election to just think about oneself or to think about one's own area or one's own grouping. This is really about everyone at this point. That is largely why I decided to run this year. As a 24-year-old, there's a lot of experiences I haven't had yet and a lot of things that I have left to learn. But I do recognize that this is an incredibly important election. And this is an incredibly, this could go very, very wrong. It could go very right. And it can go anywhere in between. But going very wrong is obviously not a desirable option. So I would urge you, I said this at the last debate, and I'll say it at as many as I get to be in. I can only ask two things from everyone. Firstly, to vote with your heart, vote with what you believe in, and vote with what you truly think will create a Canada that you are proud of, and a Canada that you can say, this is what Canada is, and this is what we put it into action when we do what we do, and it shows our true colors. But also vote with compassion for people who might require more than yourself, or for people who have more than yourself, who are not yet ready to acknowledge the fact that there are people who need more than they do. Everyone is a work in progress, but we have to consider our government a work in progress too. But it's going to have time, right? Okay, well, I'll just stop there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I do want to commend my colleagues up here on the table for a very respectful and informative meeting. We can't really call it a debate, but a meeting. It's been really good. Unfortunately, the one we really need to be worried about is the one that's not at the table. And she is, it's going to be close. It's going to be close in this election. It was close in this election last time. I did not win by much. And unfortunately, people that are going to vote Conservative, it does, they're just going to vote Conservative. They don't care that the Conservatives don't have a plan. And that they don't care that the Conservatives' environmental plan has been debunked by all the experts to say it is not a plan. And it won't make much difference. And they've committed to tearing up what we've already done. We have done so much. I am so proud, and I talked at previous meetings about moving from under 1% marine and coastal areas protected to 14% in 4 years. We're committing to 25% of Canada being protected by 2025. This is not small potatoes. This is big stuff. That stops all those big industries from going and getting their grabs on that land. And we're making that kind of commitment, along with a serious plan to bring our emissions down and be net zero by 2050. If we're not careful, we have the chance here to return to the Harper politics that we so desperately voted against last time. His cuts at the federal level you'll see very similar to the kind of things we're seeing Rob Ford do. And it's going after the most vulnerable, and it's giving more benefits to those at the higher end. Completely the reverse of what we've been doing. I don't want us to go backward. We do not have time for another cycle, another election cycle. Anna's made it clear. We have to do more now. We can't wait. I'm counting on your support to keep moving forward so we can grow our economy, can do the kind of change that we need to do, and reduce our emissions. There's a lot of misinformation out there. I don't know how many of you have got this Conservative letter. They're mailing it to the ridings that are very close, that they want to win. This letter is complete bunk. And I can talk to you if you got it and you want to learn more about it. But this is the desperation maneuvers that they are doing. It's very, very worrisome. We've got to make sure that people are checking their sources, checking information, and think strategically as you're voting. Because we cannot give this riding over to the Conservatives. Thank you.
So I'm just going to wrap things up here. Afterwards, you can speak to the candidates in the foyer there. We have to be out of this building by 9:30. I just wanted to say that, when I was growing up, this was a noble profession. I always saw this as a noble profession. And I just wanted to thank all the candidates for taking up this challenge to represent us. And, well, thank you very much. And we can all meet over the foyer now. Thanks.
Before we go, if I may, there's one of the privileges I have of having the mic. I'm not a candidate, but I want to confirm one thing, and I'll only take 30 seconds to do this. The last question was an excellent one about sort of going across party lines, working cooperatively. And I think CCKT, we're on a learning curve like all of us. And one thing I've learned in part of this group is that sometimes there's diversity of opinion. But when we work together as a team, we almost always accomplish wonderful things, if not always. And I think Cleve has said it well. I see three very dedicated individuals, and whatever the outcome of this election, I hope that all of you will be very involved in something that will